Imagine creating something so iconic that your name becomes a global symbol of success, only to watch it flourish without you. You're celebrated as a racing legend and a mechanical genius, yet by the end of your life, you're working as a factory mechanic for the very company you helped build. This is the untold story of Louis Chevrolet, a man whose ambition and innovation shaped the automotive industry forever, even as personal tragedy and financial missteps unraveled his life. But how did the co-founder of Chevrolet Motors go from the pinnacle of success to obscurity? What drove him to walk away from the company that still bears his name? And how did Chevrolet Motors rise to become one of the biggest car brands in history without him? Humble beginnings in Switzerland. Louis Chevrolet's story begins on December 25, 1878, in the small Swiss town of La Chaux-de-Fonds, nestled in the Jura Mountains. Born the second of 7 children, Louis's early life was anything but glamorous. His father, Joseph Chevrolet, was a watchmaker, a trade that was both revered and grueling in the region. While Joseph's meticulous work helped sustain the family, financial stability was always precarious. The Chevrolets faced an economic downturn when Louis was just 9 years old, forcing the family to leave their hometown and move to Beaune, France. There, Joseph opened a new watch repair shop, but the business struggled to keep up with the family's growing needs. Hunger and hardship became a regular part of life for young Louis and his siblings. At the age of 11, Louis was forced to leave school to help support his family. He found work at the Roblin Bicycle Workshop, a place where his natural aptitude for mechanics began to shine. The workshop specialized in repairing bicycles and carriages, and it was here that Louis learned the basics of engineering, skills that would shape his future. By the time he was 16, Louis had designed his own bicycle, the Frontenac, which he used to compete in local races. His talent for speed and precision quickly earned him a reputation as a formidable competitor, often finishing in first place. These victories brought much-needed income to his struggling family and ignited a lifelong passion for speed. Little did Louis know, a chance encounter would soon introduce him to a whole new world of possibilities, one that involved far more than bicycles. Discovering automobiles and dreams of America. One fateful day in the spring of 1897, Louis was called to repair a steam-driven tricycle at the prestigious Hôtel de la Poste. This peculiar contraption belonged to an American named William Kissam Vanderbilt, the grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the wealthiest men of the time. When Louis arrived, he was captivated by the vehicle. Steam-powered and unlike anything he had seen before, it was one of the first automobiles in the region. Vanderbilt, impressed by Louis's skill in repairing the tricycle, encouraged him to pursue his talents further and consider moving to America. This encounter was a turning point for Louis. The idea of working with automobiles, these fascinating futuristic machines, lit a fire within him. It wasn't just about engineering anymore, it was about creating something revolutionary. By 1899, Louis had designed another innovative bicycle, the Gladiator, which caught the attention of a manager at the Derrick automobile plant in Paris. Recognizing Louis's potential, the manager offered him a job, introducing him to the world of internal combustion engines and 4-stroke systems. Armed with newfound knowledge and a burning ambition, Louis set his sights on America, a land of opportunity where he believed anything was possible. Early successes in America. In 1900, Louis Chevrolet arrived in Montreal, Canada, with little more than a dream and the skills he had honed in Europe. Within a year, he made his way to New York City, where his mechanical expertise quickly landed him a job at an engineering workshop owned by a fellow Swiss immigrant, William Walter. Despite his growing experience, Louis faced numerous setbacks. The American branch of the Dion-Bouton, where he worked briefly, shut down unexpectedly, leaving him scrambling to find work. Around this time, tragedy struck his family when his father passed away, prompting Louis to bring his remaining family members to America. For the next few years, Louis worked tirelessly in small workshops and even took part-time jobs as a driver to make ends meet. But his big break came in 1905 when he joined the American branch of Fiat as a driver and mechanic. This role allowed Louis to combine his two greatest passions, speed and engineering. During a timed event at Morris Park, Louis drove an underpowered Fiat and stunned the crowd by breaking the 1-mile world record. Soon after, he competed in a head-to-head race against some of the country's best drivers, securing a first-place victory. The media hailed him as a rising star, and his face even graced the front page of the New York Times. Lewis's strength, skill, and daring personality earned him a reputation as one of the most talented racers of his time. But he wasn't just a driver, he was also a master mechanic who understood every inch of his cars. This dual expertise set him apart and made him an invaluable asset to the burgeoning automotive industry. With his name now firmly established in America, Louis Chevrolet was about to meet a man who would change his life and the course of automotive history forever. A chance meeting with William Durant. By 1910, Louis Chevrolet was a household name in racing circles. His fame as a fearless driver and master mechanic caught the attention of one of the most ambitious businessmen in the automotive industry, William Durant. Durant, the founder of General Motors, had recently been ousted from the company he had built due to financial mismanagement. Far from being discouraged, Durant was already planning his next big move, and he believed Louis Chevrolet could play a central role in his comeback. The meeting between Louis and Durant was serendipitous. Durant, known for his sharp eye for talent, was impressed not only by Louis's racing accolades, but also by the growing cachet of his name. To Durant, Chevrolet was more than a surname. It was a brand waiting to happen. He envisioned creating a new automobile company that could rival Ford's dominance and reclaim his position as a titan in the automotive world. Durant proposed a partnership to Louis, suggesting they build a car company together. Durant would handle the business side, including marketing and financing, while Louis would lead the engineering and design efforts. The promise of working on high-performance vehicles and leveraging his racing expertise appealed to Louis. He agreed, and in 1911, the Chevrolet Motor Company was born. But what seemed like a perfect partnership would soon be tested by clashing visions and growing tensions. The Chevrolet Classic 6. As co-founder of Chevrolet Motors, Louis wasted no time in getting to work. Together with his brother Arthur and his trusted friend Etienne Planche, Louis began designing the company's first car. The goal was to create a vehicle that combined luxury, performance, and innovation. A car that would showcase the Chevrolet name as a symbol of quality. After months of meticulous work, the Chevrolet Classic 6 was unveiled in 1913. The car was a marvel for its time. A 6-cylinder engine with a 4.8-liter displacement capable of reaching speeds of 65 miles per hour. Its stylish design, complete with leather interiors and a polished exterior, reflected Louis's commitment to craftsmanship. Priced at $2,250, which is equivalent to about $65,000 today, the Classic 6 positioned Chevrolet Motors as a premium brand. It was a car built for sophistication and speed, embodying Louis's vision of creating vehicles that rivaled the best in the industry. However, while Louis was proud of the Classic 6, Durant was less impressed. The car's high price tag meant it was out of reach for most consumers, which ran counter to Durant's belief in building affordable, mass-market vehicles. The tension between the two founders began to surface, as their differing philosophies on what Chevrolet Motors should represent came to a head. This clash of visions would soon escalate, threatening the very foundation of the company. A clash of visions. As Chevrolet Motors gained traction, the rivalry with Ford's Model T became impossible to ignore. Henry Ford's revolutionary approach to mass production had made the Model T the best-selling car in America. Priced at just a few $100s, it was a car for the masses, and its success highlighted the growing demand for affordable vehicles. Durant, ever the businessman, saw the Model T as both a challenge and an opportunity. He believed Chevrolet Motors needed to pivot toward producing budget-friendly cars to compete with Ford. Louis, however, was steadfast in his vision of building high-performance luxury automobiles. For him, Chevrolet Motors wasn't just a business, it was a reflection of his identity as a racer and engineer. The two founders argued frequently, with Durant pushing for a broader market strategy and Louis insisting on maintaining the company's focus on quality over quantity. Durant's frustration grew when Louis took a break to visit his hometown in Switzerland, leaving Durant to move forward with his plans without Louis's input. By the time Louis returned, he discovered that Durant had restructured the company to focus on producing low-cost vehicles. Feeling betrayed and sidelined, Louis confronted Durant, leading to a heated exchange that marked the beginning of the end for their partnership. The cracks in their partnership were widening, but the ultimate breaking point was yet to come. Louis Chevrolet's departure. The relationship between Louis and Durant reached its breaking point in 1915. Durant's vision for Chevrolet Motors as a mass-market brand had taken precedence, leaving Louis feeling increasingly alienated. The final straw came when Durant reportedly criticized Louis's lifestyle, mocking his choice of cigars and his demeanor as unsuitable for an executive of a major automobile company. Humiliated and disillusioned, Louis decided it was time to leave, in an act that would later be viewed as one of the most most tragic decisions in automotive history. Louis sold his stake in Chevrolet Motors to Durant. At the time, he couldn't have known the immense value his shares would one day hold, nor could he foresee the monumental success Chevrolet Motors was about to achieve. With Louis out of the picture, Durant was free to fully implement his vision. He repositioned Chevrolet Motors as a direct competitor to Ford, producing cars that were affordable, reliable, and appealing to a wide audience. The strategy worked, and by the late 19-teens, Chevrolet Motors had become one of the best-selling car brands in America. In 1918, Durant used Chevrolet's success to regain control of General Motors, merging the two companies and cementing Chevrolet as a cornerstone of the GM empire. For Louis, however, the departure marked the end of an era. He returned to his first love, racing, and focused on building high-performance race cars through his new venture, the Frontenac Motor Company. But the loss of Chevrolet Motors was a blow from which he would never fully recover. While Chevrolet Motors soared to new heights, Louis' journey took a very different turn, one marked by triumphs on the track and devastating personal losses. Founding the Motor Company. After leaving Chevrolet Motors in 1915, Louis Chevrolet found himself at a crossroads. Although he had walked away from the company bearing his name, his love for engineering and speed remained undiminished. He channeled his energy into a new venture, the Frontenac Motor Company, established with the goal of producing high-performance race cars. Unlike the mass-market vehicles Chevrolet Motors would go on to produce, Frontenac cars were designed to dominate the track. Louis brought his younger brother Gaston into the fold, and together they developed innovative designs that pushed the boundaries of automotive engineering. Frontenac cars were lightweight yet powerful, with engines that delivered exceptional speed and reliability. These attributes made them a formidable presence in the racing world, particularly during the heyday of American motorsport in the early 20th century. The Chevrolet brothers quickly made a name for themselves, entering Frontenac cars in prestigious competitions. Their dedication paid off in 1920 when Gaston Chevrolet, driving a Frontenac car, won the Indianapolis 500. It was a moment of immense pride for Louis, who had poured his heart and soul into the company. The victory not only cemented Frontenac Motors' reputation, but also reinforced the Chevrolet brothers' status as legends in the racing community. The win at Indianapolis was more than just a personal triumph. It was a validation of Louis's engineering brilliance. The Frontenac car's design was hailed as revolutionary, featuring advanced aerodynamics and engine modifications that gave it a competitive edge. For a brief moment, it seemed that Louis had found his footing again, carving out a niche in the world of high-performance vehicles. But as the Chevrolet brothers basked in their success, fate had other plans that would soon unravel their accomplishments. The loss of a brother. Just months after Gaston Chevrolet's historic victory at the Indianapolis 500, tragedy struck. During a race in Beverly Hills later that year, Gaston's car collided with another vehicle in a high-speed accident, resulting in his untimely death. For Louis, the loss was devastating. Gaston had been more than just a racing partner. He had been a confidant, a collaborator, and a source of inspiration. The death of Gaston marked a turning point in Louis's life. Grief consumed him, and he publicly announced that he would never race again. This decision effectively ended the Chevrolet brothers' reign in American motorsport and left a void in the racing community. Without Gaston by his side, Louis struggled to maintain the momentum that Frontenac Motors had built. The emotional toll of Gaston's death extended beyond Louis's personal grief. It also had a profound impact on the morale of the team at Frontenac Motors. Employees who had once been driven by the Chevrolet brothers' passion now faced uncertainty about the company's future. Despite his heartbreak, Louis attempted to pivot Frontenac Motors toward designing passenger cars, hoping to translate his expertise in performance vehicles into commercial success. However, this shift required significant investment, and Louis soon found himself seeking financial backing to bring his vision to life. But as Louis tried to steer Frontenac Motors in a new direction, he became entangled in a financial scandal that would threaten to destroy everything he had built: the Wall Street scandal and bankruptcy. In the early 1920s, Louis Chevrolet secured funding from a group of Wall Street investors to develop a prototype passenger car. The car was intended to combine the performance qualities of Frontenac's race cars with the practicality of a family vehicle. Louis envisioned a future where his cars could compete not just on the track, but also in the driveways of American households. However, Louis's ambitions were soon derailed by circumstances beyond his control. The investors he partnered with were involved in a large-scale financial scandal that rocked Wall Street. When the scandal broke, the investors abruptly withdrew their support, leaving Louis to shoulder the full burden of the project's costs. The financial fallout was catastrophic. Without the necessary funding, Frontenac Motors struggled to stay afloat. The prototype passenger car, which had represented Lewis's hopes for the future, never made it to production. In the face of mounting debts and dwindling resources, Louis was forced to file for bankruptcy. For a man who had once been a symbol of innovation and success, the collapse of Frontenac Motors was a bitter pill to swallow. It marked the second time in his life that he had lost everything he had worked so hard to build. But even in the face of failure, Louis refused to give up. He embarked on one final venture, determined to rebuild his legacy. Struggles during the Great Depression. In the years following the collapse of Frontenac Motors, Louis Chevrolet partnered with his older brother Arthur to launch the Chevrolet Brothers Manufacturing Company. The company focused on producing engines for automobiles and light aircraft, aiming to capitalize on the growing demand for innovative powertrains. For a time, the business showed promise, with its products gaining traction in international markets, including Canada, England, and Australia. However, the onset of the Great Depression in 1929 dealt a devastating blow to the global economy. Consumer spending plummeted, and demand for both automobiles and aircraft engines dried up. The Chevrolet Brothers Manufacturing Company, already operating on thin margins, was unable to weather the storm. After a few short years, the business was forced to shut its doors. Undeterred, Louis shifted his focus to the burgeoning aviation industry, founding an aircraft manufacturing company in Indianapolis. He believed that aviation represented the future of transportation and was determined to play a role in shaping it. However, the economic turmoil of the Great Depression proved insurmountable, and the company was unable to secure the resources needed to succeed. By the mid-1930s, Louis found himself in dire financial straits. In a cruel twist of fate, he was forced to return to Chevrolet Motors, the company he had co-founded, not as a leader or innovator, but as a factory mechanic. Working on the assembly line, Louis earned a modest wage, far removed from the heights of his former glory. For Louis, the experience was a humbling one. He took pride in his work, but the knowledge that his name was still associated with one of the most successful car brands in the world must have been bitter irony. As if his financial struggles weren't enough, Louis's health began to deteriorate. He developed atherosclerosis, a condition that severely restricted blood flow and ultimately led to the amputation of one of his legs. Unable to work, Louis retired in the late 1930s, spending his final years in poor health and near total obscurity. While Louis Chevrolet's life ended in tragedy, his contributions to the automotive world left an indelible mark, one that continues to resonate to this day: the legacy of Louis Chevrolet. As the 1930s unfolded, Louis Chevrolet found himself in a position he could never have imagined during his heyday. With the collapse of the Chevrolet Brothers Manufacturing Company and the failure of his aviation venture, he was left with no choice but to return to the company he had co-founded, Chevrolet Motors. However, this return was far from triumphant. Rather than resuming a leadership role, Louis was hired as a factory mechanic, working on the assembly line to earn a modest income. The company that bore his name was thriving, having become a cornerstone of General Motors' empire. Yet Louis was relegated to one of the lowest rungs of the corporate ladder. Despite the humbling circumstances, Louis took pride in his work. Those who worked alongside him described him as dedicated and meticulous, qualities that had defined his career from the beginning. But the weight of what could have been was inescapable. Chevrolet Motors was outselling Ford by the early 1930s, its bow tie emblem becoming one of the most recognizable symbols in the automotive world. And yet the man who had helped build that legacy was far removed from its success. As Louis grappled with his personal struggles, Chevrolet Motors continued to soar, solidifying its place as one of the most iconic brands in history. The decline of a visionary. The physical toll of a life spent pushing boundaries began to catch up with Louis Chevrolet in the late 1930s. Years of hard labor, combined with the stress of his financial troubles, had left him physically weakened. In 1938, he was diagnosed with atherosclerosis, a condition that severely restricted blood flow and ultimately required the amputation of one of his legs. Forced into retirement, Louis spent his final years in relative obscurity. Without the financial resources to cover his mounting medical bills, he relied on the support of friends and family to get by. For a man who had once been celebrated as a trailblazer in both racing and automotive engineering, his later years were a stark contrast to the glory of his youth. On June 6, 1941, Louis Chevrolet passed away from a heart attack at the age of 63. His death went largely unnoticed by the media, overshadowed by the global turmoil of World War II. He was buried at the Holy Cross and St. Joseph Cemetery in Indianapolis, not far from the racetrack where he had achieved some of his greatest triumphs. While Louis's life ended in tragedy, his legacy was far from forgotten. The company he helped create continued to shape the automotive industry for decades to come. The rise of Chevrolet Motors. While Louis Chevrolet's personal fortunes declined, Chevrolet Motors ascended to new heights. By the 1950s, the brand had become a dominant force in the American car market, producing some of the most iconic vehicles in automotive history. In 1953, Chevrolet introduced the Corvette, a two-seater sports car that would go on to become a symbol of American ingenuity and performance. The Corvette was groundbreaking for its time, featuring a lightweight fiberglass body and sleek aerodynamic design. It was a bold departure from the traditional family sedans and trucks that had defined the brand, and it cemented Chevrolet's reputation as a leader in innovation. The success of the Corvette was followed by the launch of the Chevy Impala in 1958. With its long, elegant design and advanced features, the Impala became a cultural phenomenon, symbolizing the prosperity and optimism of post-war America. By 1965, the Impala had sold more than 1 million units in a single year, a record that remains unbroken to this day. Chevrolet's ability to balance innovation with mass appeal was key to its success. Whether it was the rugged reliability of the Chevy pickup or the exhilarating performance of the Corvette, the brand offered something for everyone. But even as Chevrolet Motors soared, the memory of its co-founder lingered, a reminder of the sacrifices and vision that had made it all possible. Remembering Louis Chevrolet. Today, the name Chevrolet is synonymous with automotive excellence, but few people know the story of the man behind the brand. Louis Chevrolet's contributions to the industry were as significant as they were overshadowed. From his groundbreaking work in automotive engineering to his fearless exploits on the racetrack, Louis was a pioneer whose passion for innovation laid the foundation for one of the most successful car brands in history. In recent years, efforts have been made to honor Louis's legacy. Plaques and monuments at racetracks commemorate his achievements as a driver, while automotive historians have worked to shed light on his role in shaping the industry. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum features exhibits dedicated to the Chevrolet brothers, celebrating their contributions to racing and engineering. Chevrolet Motors, now a global powerhouse, continues to honor its roots. While the company has evolved over the decades, expanding into electric vehicles and advanced technologies, the spirit of innovation that Louis embodied remains at its core. As we reflect on Louis Chevrolet's life, it's impossible not to marvel at the resilience and determination he demonstrated in the face of adversity. His story is a testament to the power of ambition, the pain of sacrifice, and the enduring impact of a visionary who dared to dream big. What do you think about Louis Chevrolet's story? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from the world of automotive legends.